See, if people are outside of their heart and their soul, somebody can come along and do anything. You're a bull with a ring. The fear is where you can get grasped and pulled. When you're in your heart, you're in your strength. When you're in your heart and your compassion, your love, you're in your soul, and nothing can shake that.
Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality. If you're new here, my name is Kat, and I'm a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. And I am joined today by Catherine Corona, who has a doctorate in spiritual sciences and over 50 years of experience in spiritual exercises. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's my favorite subject.
It's always fun to connect with different people and hear different perspectives and just get the conversation out there and going. It's my favorite thing in the world, too. Can you start off by just letting us all know a little bit about your journey and how you got to doing what you do today?
So I think it started, a seed was planted when I was about 5. And what happened was, in my life was my family would go to a wilderness lake up near the Canadian border in Wisconsin for our summer vacations. And when I was 5, I asked if I could go for a walk in the woods on my own. Now, probably no parent would do that today, but I was like, sure, go on with the bears and whatever. But it was this moment of I had this moment in the woods where I looked up through the canopy, through the trees, the leaves were blowing in the breeze. And I remember like it was yesterday, it was really blue sky and clouds. And I looked up and I thought, this isn't real. This isn't real. And I wanted to like pull back the curtain. And the curtain did pull back. And I saw the stars. And then I heard the stars. And I heard these connections between the stars, as if the stars were singing to each other. That's what a 5-year-old thought I was experiencing, the stars singing to each other. And I thought, well, this is just the beginning of that. This is just the beginning of what I'm starting to see that's more real. So somehow that intention, that seed was planted when I was really, really young. And then for a while there, everywhere I moved, there was a spiritual teacher of some kind. I lived in a ranch up in Colorado where I still live, and in the big ranch house, a Sufi teacher and his followers, he would come to visit, and they lived there. His name was Rashad Field. He's passed now, but he was quite prominent back in the 80s. I didn't revere him because I didn't know what a spiritual teacher actually was then. And so he would talk to me because I didn't put him on a pedestal. I didn't know who he was. And then they moved out, and some people that followed Lakota traditions moved in, and there was a medicine man named Archie Fire Lame Deer, and his father was John Fire Lame Deer, who wrote Lame Deer's Secret Visions. And they would invite me to sweat lodges and pipe ceremonies, and I felt the changes after I was in a sweat lodge, or just standing by a pipe ceremony, felt the clearing and the expansion and the transcendence and the beauty of it. I lived next to the president of the Theological Society, which kind of an esoteric Christianity. And she would invite me over for tea, and we'd have these long talks. And then I moved again, and there was a Presbyterian minister on one side and a Lutheran minister on the other side. And this just is what happened.
As an unfolding pattern for your life.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. Do you think that that's, again, and it's totally from your perspective, right? Do you think that that is kind of a predestined life path, or do you think it's an example of the power of manifestation for like a child who doesn't have limiting beliefs and
Hmm.
just knows there's something else out there, and so the path just unfolds, everything's working out?
I think the path is available for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
anyone. And I think really pretty much everybody is on a spiritual path, consciously or not consciously. But if you consciously set the intention or even ask the question, what is the meaning of life? That sets a course.
Yeah. I think they're eager to share with us, and we just have to be open to it. So like you said, the path is there for everyone because we're all connected, we're all spiritual
Mm.
beings, and just the intention or the question, the curiosity, sometimes any little thing is enough to spark that, so the beginning of that path just beginning to unfold.
Sometimes, it's pretty obvious. Sometimes we get there by asking for help. Something happens
Hmm.
in somebody's life and it's like, I need extra help here. And that
Yeah.
opens up the door. And the help is present. Maybe subtly, maybe it's so subtle you have to have your eyes and ears open to see as it comes. They say you see spirit in the corners of your eyes, right? In the
Hmm.
peripheral vision, you'll see the invisible world becomes more visible in those edges of our consciousness, the edges of our spiritual sight, spiritual sound. So if we just open ourselves up to that and the magic of it, I think there's a spiritual promise for everyone. One of the things I also did when I was 5 years old, I didn't want to go to school. I did not want to go into the world, but I sort of asked what I call the voice. Well, if I have to go out there, what's the best thing I can do out there? And I heard, or I aligned with, maybe, be the best person you can be. For a 5-year-old, that's really simple, but it's really profound also. So I think when people sometimes go, what am I going to do with this life I've been given? And decide whatever stage of life they're in, but they decide, I'm just gonna see if I can be the best person. I'm gonna set that challenge. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I still don't know what that looks like, right? But
Yeah.
the opportunities are laid out every day. How can I do
Yes. And we were kind of talking before we started recording about following whatever actually feels exciting or passionate or feels
it?
opening up to you, right? Like, and I think it's different for every person, but I do think that there is an unfolding spiritual journey along the lines of things that actually give you joy and make you feel passionate and you want to be involved in. I find that people have the best conversations when they're talking about things that they're passionate about and engaged in, right? I think that being able to tap into a sense of self and know what it is that actually makes you feel happy, interested, curious, engaged with life. Like, in what ways do you feel the best engaged with things?
And to give yourself permission for that.
Yes.
So key. I worked in the Boulder County Jail with women. I was thinking of the curriculum to go and present to them, and I decided I would work on goals. So I went in there and I said, let's work on goals today. And it was just blank stares. And I just went, has anybody ever worked on a goal? And they were still blank stares. And then I went, do you know what a goal is? And what I found, it's kind of heartbreaking, but what I found was they didn't know what a goal was. Nobody had told them they could have what they wanted in life. Nobody had given them permission. I think what you're talking about is if a person finds themselves in a position in life, an issue, a dilemma, something they want to get out of, you can dial that back to the intention you set for yourself
Hmm.
and the trail to achieve it with the magic of spirit as a partner for you to achieve what you want. And then we're not so stuck in the dilemmas that some people find themselves in. It's a way to liberate yourself. It's a way towards freedom.
How do we pick back through and release ourselves from those limiting beliefs when, some, to your point, some people never even had exposure to the idea that yes, you can, and you're an unlimited being with unlimited potential. And for many people, the socialization aspect of it is real, right? Like, very limiting ideas from a very young age. And how do we move forward with working through, like, what some of those limiting ideas are? Some of them are so subconsciously buried we don't even realize we're doing it.
Two aspects of that. One, I think half of our work, 50% of our work here, is to heal what may be unhealed. Part of that is limiting beliefs. And 50% of our work is expanding into the most uplifting, beautiful parts of the trueness of ourselves, of our soul. of our self with a capital S, of the reality with a capital R. So going back, you can ask yourself, invite yourself to bring to the surface any beliefs that are limiting yourself in the intention, in the path you've set for yourself. And they will emerge. They will emerge. And I always say, in a gentle, graceful way that I can handle easily, right? So I don't want to dump it. I don't want it a big dump download. I have had that, but I've said, bring it on. It's not as gentle as I would like it. So I've
No,
learned, no. So I've
no,
learned.
sometimes those are the hard ones to get through, for sure.
I dial that back now in a way that is gentle and graceful, in a way that is easily handled. I want to clear all that stuff up. So I'll get little glimpses of those limiting beliefs. And they'll come in, it would be a glimpse that I then turn towards so I can shine the light on it, right? So it might be just a tiny little voice, or somebody will say something and I'll go, oh, that's where I'm limiting myself. Or it's a feeling. It can be sort of a ineffable feeling, just like, oh, I'm stuck here. And I don't need to necessarily know what it is. That's okay not to know what it is in my book. Just let's clear it out. Bring the light of spirit in, bring my reality, bring my soul, because everything is perfect in the soul and the eternal self, whatever word you want to call for it.
Mhm.
Everything is perfect in that place, right? It's just so close to the source, to the creator.
Yeah, and I was like doing a lot of work with my own imagination. Like,
Mm.
how do I engage with myself in my imagination? Am I imagining like fun, awesome stuff I want to do and be an explorer? Or am I always imagining something, going wrong or trying to work out those problems? Like, how am I engaging with my imagination? And I found that I had a lot of things that I could imagine myself being that were exciting or fun or engaging, all of these things, but they were things that I didn't think were possible or things I didn't think were real. Just kind of unleashed my imagination a little bit. Like, what do I actually think is fun and engaging in my mind? And I got a download suddenly that was like, you're not capable of imagining a version of yourself that you're not capable of being. Like, if you're imagining it and it
Mm.
feels fun and engaging, if it feels good and exciting, but you think you can't have that, or you think there's something standing in your way, it was like my way of looking at what the limiting beliefs were for myself. Like, why do I think I can't do that?
That's a great approach.
Right? Like, why is
Yes,
it that I think I can't be everything that I am actually enjoying being in my own imagination?
I really like that approach. It's a clever and masterful approach.
That was the downloads. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it does, to your point, like, the more you see it in the corner of your eye and you recognize it, the more you
Mm.
see the synchronicities and you recognize them, you engage with it, I think the easier things flow. You get to trust those intuitions and those downloads a little bit more and a little bit more every time that they're acknowledged.
Until eventually you just become that.
Yeah, yeah, it becomes second nature to follow those impulses and those thought processes and let them in.
Second nature. And I think we can cross a bridge where we are that. Well, we are that anyway, right? They say the great paradox of enlightenment is once you become enlightened, you realize you always were.
Yeah.
So that those downloads, that wisdom, that higher wisdom, you can move. I think there's a spiritual promise that if you ask that that's eventually what you are to become, a saint, maybe you might say, an enlightened being, you will become that. You can become that, at least in most of your moments. Is anybody 100% of the time that? No,
No.
but more and more of the time you can do that. What you can behold, you can become.
Yeah. That was the essence of the download that I got, is that
Yeah.
all of this is possible. So where's the limiting belief structure? And it's interesting, I think that out there nowadays, we're starting to see a lot more breakdowns of socializations, a lot more breakdowns of old thought processes and things happening. And it does look very chaotic and messy out there right now, in internet land and political land. And it can be really like an uncomfortable energy for everyone to be in. What do you think are some of the best ways for managing the collective energy right now?
I don't get involved in it, which which doesn't mean I'm not aware of it. I definitely stay up on current events and everything that's going on so I can be of service wherever I'm called to do that, but I don't get involved in it. So what we're seeing, there's a reality to our humanness, of course, but but what I call the nonsense, I mean, it's just like a great big drama. It's a great big drama, to keep our attention and seduce our attention, I think, into exactly where we don't want to be, which is in all that mess. It doesn't mean you don't work to help, to serve, to lift the energy. We do, light workers or spiritual workers are usually have chosen to have a life of service, which doesn't mean
Hmm.
you have to do anything, but just holding, anchoring the light here to a higher vibration that people can then resonate with and harmonize with. So watching all that, but being above it so that it doesn't grab you. Now, we all have those places that will grab us. At least I do. I
Hmm.
have those places that are still, you know, I don't know, intrigued by the drama. There's energy in it. And then I have to walk myself back. It's like, that's not the energy we want. That's not the energy. We don't want to get caught in that. But I don't get too caught in it anymore.
Hmm.
As I've gotten older and done spiritual practices for longer and longer, I can just kind of ride on on the wave of just above the fray, to be above the fray, to be in the world but not of the world, and understand that we're not of the world. It's a little stop on the way to, I think, make us stronger because it's not easy here.
Yeah.
I don't find it easy. I don't find too many people that find it easy. But it does, but it is captivating, and it is a springboard into the higher levels of consciousness.
Yeah. Tend to think of physical reality or this earth we're all on together, these bodies that we're working through here as it's not so much a place as it is a technique of experience.
Hmm.
Like all of us who come here came here to have this particular kind of technique of experience that does involve the contrast or the good and the bad, because it's a heightened energy reaction when you want and then like get satisfaction, or there's the whole experience is very heightened and potent here. So it is a an excellent place for expanding the spiritual experience, because you're just going to get a lot of very intense energies being here. And I feel like if we step back and look at it that way, like, because I think it's very difficult for anybody to be completely detached from everything that's going on. Just with, my phone pops up and tells you things. All information is all over the place now. And,
Hmm.
for me personally, I kind of tend to look at it like if something is triggering me that I'm watching, or what, like if I feel some kind of negative way about it, it's an interesting way once again to look at my own limiting beliefs or
Yeah.
my own healing process, or why is this triggering for me? Like, what is it about my experience that this kind of an interaction still causes me a lot of pain or makes me upset? So I won't say that I don't engage in everything that's going on, because for me personally, I feel like that's why I came here to be human. And so being engaged in the human experience is I try to look at it as a powerful and potent experience for me to be involved in the human experience and looking at what things trigger me and where the healing opportunities are, rather than getting very angry at other people for seeing things
Hmm.
differently.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, acceptance, they say, is the first law of spirit. So rather than getting angry at the way people see the world or their behaviors, accepting them for where they are and then just holding in the loving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we didn't all come here to be the same person or to have or to have the same ideas about things. And I do think we're going through a big developmental phase right now where everyone is having to re-find their own internal validity
Mm,
rather than waiting for some external factor to be
mm,
validating. Because it's like the need to turn your eyes and your focus back on yourself for that validity, for that healing, and not have to rely on external factors for it.
I think all of that can lead us back into our own heart and soul, spirit and soul,
Yeah,
and so that we don't forget who we are, and we're
yeah.
just go back into the remembrance, being, remembered into the oneness. I think all of that can point us back into who we truly are, and we can live from that space, that soul, that wisdom, the higher consciousness, whatever words you want to call it, as a guide for our life. And it's a lot more fun.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and once I started working with my own validity, my own like understanding that when I'm triggered or I'm upset, it's really my healing journey that's being pointed out for me. And once I sort of internalized that and made my own like validity outside of external factors really more the core point of experiencing any of that, it was a lot easier to hold space for other people, because if I
Mm,
acknowledge that this is my path and I'm valid regardless of how I see things, and believe me, half the stuff I talk on here, other people would think I was weird and invalid, right? And I understand that. But it also, if I'm valid outside of other people's perspective, then that means that other people are valid outside of my perspective, right? Like
mhm.
everybody's on their own individual path. And so having a bit of detachment from that, like it's where people are right now on their journey is where they're supposed to be. And it's okay to let
Yeah,
them be there.
love them for where they are and
Mm-hmm.
love ourselves for where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can certainly see my flaws and foibles and then see where I'd like to be. But to make that transition, I have to love myself where I am, right? Accept all the parts. And then those, even the ones that I kind of cringe about.
Oh
Wh-
yeah. Like there's I don't think anybody can really do the shadow work or the facing inward looking at things and not have like cringy aspects of it where you're like, oh gosh, is this really ours? You know what you know? Um, but I think it's part of the fun of the experience of being
Mhm,
here. Like
mhm,
the whole interactive sandbox reality that we're co-creating our energy fields here, and it's sort of like, chemistry is when things attract and attach, they change each other. And, on a very small level, that's how the whole system works, right? And I think it works with our energy fields too, is the people that you come into contact with will change you. They'll make it something else. There's a growth and
mhm.
expansion that happens every time we have those interactions. This may just be a technique of experience, maybe, but it's certainly a challenging one at times.
It's
Yeah.
very challenging at times. Yes, very challenging at times. My friend of mine just texted me last night. She just got diagnosed with stage 2 cervical cancer. They called her like at 6 o'clock last night. And so she texted me, she's up again. It's going to be pretty challenging for a while for her.
Yeah.
Um, and I think maybe we don't all get cancer, thank God, but we all had those times. Now she's got a great attitude. She's really strong, but she was up all night. I'm like, how did you sleep? I didn't. No, of course you didn't. Brand new
Yeah.
news. It's challenging here,
Yeah.
but
And I'm
and
sorry to hear that, sending healing energy for your friend.
thank you.
I've often wondered at the correlation because I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm one of those people that feels like energy can build up in the body and cause the reflection of illnesses and stuff to show up there, because we do have a higher statistic of women having difficulty with diseases of the reproductive system, things like
Mm.
cervical cancer, like ovarian cysts, like breast cancer, all of that type of stuff is a big thing. There's a pretty high statistic of it happening. Do you think that the relationship that we have with ourselves as women in the world, it's been an uncomfortable, energy, the way that we're kind of socialized to think about ourselves as women, as divine feminine,
Mm,
could be an underlying contributing
mm.
energetic factor to the amount, just the amount of, cancers and diseases that we find with the feminine reproductive organs.
I think we create, promote, and allow everything in our lives. We
Hmm.
are, as you mentioned, we are responsible for this existence and for what we
Hmm.
experience here and how we live it and what happens in our bodies. Not not to beat ourselves up about it, but to
Right.
learn from it.
Yeah, yeah.
Learn from it. So I had uterine cancer 3 times, and it was metastatic and it was all over the place. I'm obviously cured. It took some years, took me longer because I had more to learn. So I look at it as so that same story I told you when I was 5 years old, a very potent summer, and when I asked what was I supposed to do with my life, you're there's something you're meant to learn in this life. And I
Hmm.
asked, what is that? And I heard the word compassion. So I was 5. I had no idea what that word meant. When I finally could read big words, which was like
Hmm.
second grade, I went into the living room, got this big, huge dictionary we had in there, and looked up the word compassion.
Hmm.
And I read the definition. But that had, I still didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
It was until I got cancer and went to a big cancer, MD Anderson in Texas. And there were so many people. I saw so many people, hundreds with, and then their spouses or their loved ones. And their loved ones were the ones that my heart really went out to. They were having the hardest time.
Hmm.
And I felt that. I felt it in my being. And I finally knew as a way of being what compassion was, not as an intellectual thought, but as a way of being in the heart, in the soul, as an energy field, what it is to just know what somebody's going through, not to feel sad about it, because that
Hmm.
doesn't help anything, but to resonate with them in such a way that, again, the tuning fork could resonate with them and then hold an energy to hopefully assist them in strength. There's an action with compassion. So when I see somebody with something really big, life threatening, or a divorce, or anything that shakes you to your core, um, I look at it as what is the soul wanting to learn with this? And for me, it was the only way to be cured. When you're on this big karmic flow of something, there's something to learn every day. So every day I
Hmm.
asked myself, and every day there were little learnings with the overarching learning of compassion. That's how I beat it.
I like that a lot because I feel like when you can take the energy around something like a disease like that, that the whole dialogue around it can be really very frightening and concerning and worry. And there's something like very powerful about the way that you said that, because transforming fear or anger about a situation into compassion is the most important way to mitigate that energy.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So I think that's applicable in all ways, in more than just one way right now, for sure.
And it's liberating.
Yeah.
Then you're liberated from the weight and the bonds and the strings and the pulls and the seductions of fear and
Hmm.
worry and concern and doubt and if I don't do this or I don't go that way, what's going to happen to me? No,
Yeah.
go the way of your heart and your soul. See, if people are outside of their heart and their soul, somebody can come along and do anything. It's like, you're a bull with a ring. The fear is where you can get grasped and pulled.
Yeah.
When you're in your heart, you're in your strength. When you're in your heart and your compassion, your love, you're in your soul, and nothing can shake that. Nothing can shake that. And then you're liberated. You might have moments, certainly. We're all
Oh yeah.
human. We
Yeah.
live in this duality, but they won't last long. and you won't be fooled for long, not for long. And you'll stand for others in that strength. And
Yeah.
not that you have to do anything, but you just have to be in the beingness of the strength. And then they'll come to it when they come to it. The world will come to it when the world comes to it.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
sometimes the best thing that we can do is just be in that energy. I feel like you can look at and watch how somebody behaves, like somebody who does feel compassion rather than anger or fear, somebody who does feel love rather than hate or blame shifting, as somebody who does feel very solid and confident in themselves and but doesn't need to prove it to anybody, or
Mhm.
it's I feel like you can just being in that energy, it helps as just an example to show other people, like, doesn't it it just feels better to be this way. It
Yes.
just feels better to act in love rather than fear and worry and hate. Like, you're gonna feel so much better as a person, and other people will feel so much better being around you.
And I think that's where having some kind of spiritual practices
Hmm.
that work for you are going to keep you on that, are going to keep you uplifted in the highest state possible, in the highest consciousness possible, in your soul, in your heart, in your loving. So, because the world is designed, it's really designed to pull us and with its seductions and its drama. And then how do we stay in the center of our beingness? I would guess that your audience, that everybody has those things, whether
Oh
you've
yeah.
identified them or defined them for yourself or not. A walk with your dog, a walk to school with your child, a moment looking at the clouds, prayer, meditation, breathing, whatever practice you do, that's going to be also a technique for
Mhm.
yourself. So that when you are triggered or you do have those things that start to pull at you, and they might not even be yours, right? You know, when you walk into a house and somebody's very upset, you can kind of start to resonate with that.
Yeah.
When you've deepened your inner being, that connection with your inner being by whatever practices and staying on the straight and narrow, however you do that for yourself, that gets stronger and stronger and stronger. I need those. I have to come back to them.
It is good to like point out that compassion doesn't necessarily mean matching somebody else's like vibe. Like, you can feel for where somebody is on their path without being there yourself. It's good
No,
to
you have to
make
stay
that
within.
distinction
Yes,
because
yes.
it's very easy, to your point, for like empaths, people who can feel the energy in the air, can feel other people. It becomes a different kind of game, a game of trying to remain in a compassionate space, but without letting it actually attach to you, or matching a vibration or a frequency with somebody who's going through things, to be able to remain separate from that and recognize that it's not actually your feelings. I used to walk,
Really important.
yeah, I used to walk around in high school for a long time. I didn't understand why I couldn't stand being there in the crowded
Mm,
hallways. Like, literally, it would make me feel nauseous. Like, I'd have to go to
mm.
the nurse's office. And
Wow.
for a long time, I didn't understand why I couldn't stand being at school. It caused problems with my family. It wasn't until later that I realized that it's just a very emotional, tumultuous time for people. A lot of
Mm.
the kids there are going through things, going through growing up, and it was just like being absolutely bombarded with all of
Hard.
that in the hallway every day, to the point where it was making me feel gross and sick. Um, so definitely learning to manage that and create that separation, that energy separation for yourself, is a super important life skill for anybody who's sensitive to energies and stuff.
Did you learn that on your own, or did you have anybody in your family that could knew that you were that highly sensitive and help you? Or
No, when my abilities kicked in at around 12, and I started
mm,
really having strange experiences that I couldn't explain with their version of science at the time, right?
mhm,
Um, I really didn't have any kind of spiritual training at all. Like, I'd never been to church. Nobody told me bedtime stories about angels. None
mm,
of that. So, um, my mom was aware that I was going through things, but it did. Again, there wasn't a whole lot for her that she knew how to do to help
Mm,
with or manage that. And this would have been back when the internet was in its infancy, and so you were
mm,
kind of stuck with whatever local practitioners you could find available, like, to
mm,
sort of help with the situation. But no, a lot of it ended up having to be my own experience. And the
mm,
only teachers I ever really had were the non-corporeal beings I was
mm,
interacting with. I always called them the others because I didn't know what else to
mhm.
call them. They were just that which was other than me, uh that was talking to me for whatever reason. So I really, most of what I learned came from them, and then just from like having to wade through it myself and figure things out as I went along.
You're very strong. That's pretty great that you learned that on your own. And
But like I said, I did have a lot of help from
yeah,
upstairs, so
yes.
I wasn't
Yeah.
totally alone. But
But you listened. You listened to that.
again, I didn't have anyone else to listen to. So it kind of, in some ways, it kind of uncomplicates the situation because I didn't have a lot of like religious dogma that I had to
Oh,
overcome in order to listen or anything like that. It was like, well, I don't know why the weird brain demons are telling me stuff, but it's not bad stuff, so I guess we're just rolling with it. I
wow.
In fact, most of my life I was mostly afraid of a diagnosis. Like I didn't want to
Uh,
go. Like I was afraid they were going to tell me that I was, a high functioning schizophrenic with spiritual ideation, and I didn't want to be put on medication. Like I didn't tell anybody for a really long time because I
right.
wanted to avoid that whole scenario.
Thank God. Thank God. No, I know. I understand. I had the same thing. I would tell my mom when I was really young about other lives,
Hmm.
and she took me to a doctor. Why is my
Yeah.
daughter telling me about Germany? She's never been there. So I quickly figured out, do not say that stuff. And I'll take you to a doctor.
Yeah.
Do
And
not
again,
say
for you as well, you were also very young. And so when you're a minor and you don't really have control over your own decisions,
that. Hmm.
somebody else is deciding whether or not you're going to go to a doctor, you do kind of learn to fold up and keep it to yourself, even when it's challenging or scary, because the alternative would be, whatever the adults think is an appropriate action, and you're not going to have much control over what happens after that. So,
No, I
um,
figured it out real fast. They're not doing real fast. But I am excited for young people that people are so much more aware
yeah.
that this can be nurtured in them. And a parent can say, what was that life? Who are you listening to? And just nurture this. Because can you imagine if this is nurtured, just
Mhm.
the heights that people can go and the expanded awareness people will have?
Absolutely. And part of the reason why I do this work and I talk to people and I put it out there on the internet is so that if there are people or parents or
Mm,
young people who are like, oh my God, this is happening to me, you can click it, you can search it. It's something you can look up on YouTube, and at the very least know that you're not crazy. There's lots of other people that go through stuff like this. And I think anytime we're sharing and putting this out there, writing books, making videos, we're
mm,
leaving our own sort of library, our own akashic record for
mm,
next generations to find. Do you know what I mean? The
mm,
journey we don't the journey we kind of had to like bottle up and hide because there was nowhere to
mm,
express it. They can be more open and more comfortable with it, and
mm.
have those resources to move forward.
It's interesting that, and I don't know that much about Eastern cultures, but it seems like this lack of acceptance of anything not scientific is akin in our culture.
Yeah.
Other cultures are more open to it, certainly, from what I've read.
Yeah,
But
definitely. And again, I am no religious historian or anything, but there's definitely a more of a history of like East Asian cultures being more like you can feel more than one way about something. Like you can accept that sciences and stuff are real and workable and also believe in Buddhism or also believe in Shinto or whatever the practice is, right? Like it's not a conflict to have to believe in both. There's less of that, but I do think that there's a lot of, for more Western cultures, there's a lot of healing that needs to take place because there's a long history of our religions not being okay with science and stomping that stuff out, or and science researching going, no, religious is silly. And so there's actually a lot more conflict historically in that relationship and in that energy between spirituality and the sciences in Western culture, where
Mhm.
there was an attempt to, you know, suppress or eradicate, which is too bad. Hopefully we're
Mm.
healing out of that phase.
I think we are. I think we're healing out of that phase. I think that's what we're seeing. The pendulum has swung way one way where the the smallness of thinking is trying to grasp at straws now because the consciousness has changed.
Yeah.
It's changed. And it's changing by leaps and bounds. It may not look like that if you watch the news, but if you, at least I see it when I'm out there with younger people, with children, with conversations I have just in the grocery store, people that are just moving into greater and greater awareness and greater loving. I mean, you just see it. You see people talking about love now. This is out there in the mainstream now. It's mainstream.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it
think,
really has proliferated all the different spiritual practices. There's so many different ways to get involved with it now,
yeah.
which is it's really neat and really fun to see just how many different trails have been blazed, for different practices. There's ways for people to find what really resonates for them as a practice, and that really opens up and lets the path unfold for them. It's really wonderful. I just looked at my timer and was like, oh my gosh, some conversations just go, you know what I mean?
Mm,
I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate you
mm,
being here. And I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface. You have so many resources and things that you do available for people. Can you let everyone know where they can find you and what things you have available
mm.
for everyone?
Well, I have soul and spirit daily spiritual practices. So I took spiritual practices because people would come to me, will you meditate with me? Will you? And I thought, I don't think they're really asking to meditate. I think they don't know what they're asking for and they think it's meditation. But I think
Yeah.
what they really want is a connection with their heart and soul and to wake up, come into greater awareness, spiritual awareness. And what I put together was 5 spiritual practices and I just recorded them. You can receive them every day in an email. Eventually, I'll have an app, and it's an invocation to just kind of call the spirit forward. Then I have a spiritual teaching from one of the great masters throughout history. And then I take that and I make an affirmation from it to just kind of hone your mental and emotional level, astral imagination level, and start to master that and put it in the direction that you want. Then I recorded a chant and using the ancient Sanskrit bija mantras, seed mantras, and then a guided meditation. So you can just plug it in, and it's only 5 to 7 minutes. And then you can do it longer if the spirit moves you, but I think it will connect you into that space, give you some stillness, some peace, and start to strengthen that place deeper and deeper into your soul. So soulandspirit.net, you can find it there. And then I have a daily quote. If you'd like to get a daily inspirational quote from one of the spiritual masters, which I curated, and that's available. That's just a gift. So,
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll put all of those links in the description so people can click and follow and go engage with that. It sounds like a wonderful practice to have something
mm,
just small and short daily that you can do to help guide yourself into the zone that you're wanting to be in for your daily activities. I think that's a really beneficial practice. And I
mm,
appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time to put that kind of thing out there. Thank you for sharing your
mm.
wisdom with people, for being light and holding up the torch and doing the work. I really appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank
Thank you. And thank you guys for being here and for engaging with it. We appreciate you so much. Always like, subscribe, all of that fun filled stuff. And we will see you guys next time on Spirituality.